She was just the help, until she stepped on stage and shattered a fake billion-dollar legacy in front of everyone. As we dive into this story, don't forget to like the video and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe for more powerful ones. The Langford estate glowed beneath strings of golden lights, every inch of it designed to impress. The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers and polished marble, while servers in black and white uniforms floated through the crowd like trained shadows. The annual Langford Foundation Gala was underway, a glittering gathering of wealth, politics, and legacy. Amara Ellis moved through the chaos with the grace of someone used to being unseen. She wore the same pressed uniform as the other staff, her dark hair tucked under a cap, her face bare. No jewelry, no name tag, no presents. And that was exactly how they wanted it. Guests arrived in droves, women in diamond-studded gowns, men in suits that cost more than Amara's monthly earnings. She offered champagne, cleared plates, nodded silently. They didn't look at her. Not really. They looked through her. A blonde woman with a gloved hand and too much perfume wrinkled her nose when Amara passed. Did they really have to bring in help from the shelter? She whispered to her companion. Amara didn't flinch. She had heard worse. From the stage, Evelyn Langford addressed the crowd with practiced warmth. Draped in silver silk, the widow of the late Richard Langford looked every inch the queen of old money America. Her smile was perfect. Her words rehearsed. My husband believed in legacy, she said. He believed in building something that would outlast him. That would bear his name proudly, forever. The room erupted in polite applause. Amara stood at the back with a tray of wine flutes, expression unreadable. Behind Evelyn, mounted high on the wall, was a massive oil portrait of Richard Langford himself. Strong jaw, piercing eyes, hand resting over a globe. She stared at it longer than she meant to. One of the other servers nudged her gently. You good? Amara blinked. Yeah. Sorry. The music started. Waiters swept through the room. Deals were whispered over bourbon. Foundations toasted new pledges. Amara moved from table to table, catching bits of conversation she was never meant to hear. She's really holding it all together, isn't she? Evelyn. Like nothing ever touched her. Well, when your husband dies with $500 million in assets and no scandal, you can afford to grieve in private. Amara kept her head down. In a quieter part of the house, near the east hallway, a few older guests mingled near the library. Amara passed through with a tray and noticed something curious. A man, mid-60s, balding, white, watching her with a puzzled expression. He squinted slightly, then looked over to a woman beside him and whispered something. The woman's brows furrowed. She glanced at Amara, then quickly looked away. Amara kept walking. She paused in the hallway, just for a moment, in front of a framed photograph. Not the grand oil portrait in the ballroom, but something smaller, Richard Langford shaking hands with a senator. She studied his eyes. For a brief second, something flickered behind her own. Later, in the kitchen, she returned a tray to the counter and wiped her hands. One of the catering leads handed her a folded napkin. You dropped this, he said. I didn't. He gave her a strange look and walked away. Inside the napkin was a note. She buried the truth. But not all of us did. Amara folded it carefully, placed it in her pocket, and said nothing. In the final hour of the gala, as fireworks bloomed in the distance and laughter filled the halls, Amara passed a small side door slightly ajar. It led to the private study, reserved for family only. She slipped in. The air smelled of leather and dust. A large mahogany desk sat in the center, untouched for years. Shelves lined the walls. On the desk sat a gold pen, oddly familiar. She reached out, touched it. Flash. A memory, blurry, soft. A man's hand signing a letter. Her small fingers tugging at his sleeve. Amara, he'd said. Someday. I promise. She pulled her hand back quickly. The drawer beneath the desk was locked. She didn't try to force it. Not yet. She returned to the hall, blending in once more. But now, the uniform felt different. Too tight. Too small. Like it no longer fit the woman she was becoming. And somewhere upstairs, Evelyn Langford raised her glass again to toast a legacy she thought she had sealed in marble, unaware that the cracks had already begun to form. The gala moved into its second hour, and with it, the buzz grew louder. Guests loosened their smiles with champagne. Strings gave way to jazz. Conversations darkened into ambition and gossip. But Amara kept to her path, weaving between power and pretense, invisible in plain sight. She caught glimpses of Evelyn Langford from time to time, always surrounded, always adored. Her presence was theatrical, yet effortless. Everything about her gleamed, the icy pearls on her neck, the hand resting gently over her chest when she laughed, the way she dismissed a server with a flick of her fingers. Amara watched her from the edges of the room. She wasn't studying her out of awe. She was searching for cracks. Behind Evelyn's polished exterior was a woman who had spent decades writing history and erasing footnotes. In the dining wing, Amara refilled glasses at a long table when she overheard a voice behind her, low and uncertain. "I could have sworn, she looks just like him." Amara didn't turn. She moved away, steady, letting the words sink deeper than the wine she poured. Outside the ballroom, guests stepped into the garden terrace to take calls or gossip freely. Amara followed a pair of them, two older men in tuxedos with loosened ties. "And I told Evelyn, you can't keep secrets forever." Richard was complicated. People forget that. She didn't. She made damn sure no one else remembered, either. They chuckled, then stiffened as Amara passed by. One of them opened his mouth to speak, then thought better of it. In the hallway leading to the upstairs gallery, Amara crossed paths with Ms. Geneva, the Langford family's longtime housekeeper. Once regal, now slowed by age and a cane, Geneva moved like a woman who'd spent her whole life biting her tongue. Their eyes met. Geneva's froze. She didn't say a word. But her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the railing. Amara gave a small nod. A silent question. Geneva nodded back. A silent answer. Later that night, Amara returned to the study. This time, she wasn't alone. The door was already cracked open. Inside stood a man in a navy suit, examining the portrait of Richard Langford above the fireplace. He was older, gray at the temples, holding a drink he hadn't touched. "I knew he'd never let go of that pen," he said without turning. Amara stepped into the room, cautious. "You worked with him?" "I was his lawyer," the man replied. "For 32 years. She said nothing. He turned to face her. His eyes scanned her face, not leering, but remembering. "You have his eyes," he said. "Sharper than hers. Kinda, too." She looked at him carefully. "You left me a note." "No," he said. "But I'm not surprised someone did. Some of us, we waited. Hoped." Amara moved closer to the desk. Her fingers hovered over the locked drawer again. "I know what's in there," the man said softly. "At least, I know what was in there. Evelyn may have moved it. She always did prefer control to truth." "What was it?" "A letter. From him. Meant for you." Amara's jaw tightened. She didn't blink. "He wrote it after the diagnosis," the lawyer continued. "Pancreatic cancer. He didn't have long. And in those last months, he stopped pretending. He said your name like it was prayer and punishment all at once." "My name?" Amara whispered. "Or the one she let him use?" The man's throat tightened. "He called you Rose in the letter. But I suspect, that wasn't your name." Amara turned toward the bookshelves. Her eyes scanned them, row after row of biographies, business books, memoirs of men who built things with money they didn't fully earn. On the third shelf, she spotted something, a leather-bound journal, older than the rest. She pulled it down. The first page was blank. The second held a date. The third, a single line. "I failed her the day I let her mother walk out that door." Her breath caught. Her fingers trembled. She flipped through, searching. Paragraphs detailed business trips, political partnerships. But between the clean entries were scattered pieces, raw, broken. Mentions of a woman named Celeste. And a baby he wasn't allowed to claim. She said if I kept the baby, she'd leave. She said it would ruin us. I chose legacy over love. God forgive me. She closed the book, unable to breathe. It wasn't the full truth. Not yet. But it was real. And it had survived. Outside, the music had shifted to a slow, sweeping waltz. Laughter floated through the hallways like perfume. But in that quiet study, the walls began to shake, not with noise, but with memory. Amara turned to the lawyer. Why didn't you ever come find me? I tried, he said quietly. But Evelyn, she made sure you disappeared. The door creaked. Amara tucked the journal under her arm. And then Miss Geneva stepped inside. She looked at Amara. Then at the journal. Then at the lawyer. She's ready, Geneva said. No one asked how she knew. She simply opened her palm, and in it was a folded document. Yellowed. Fragile. Amara took it slowly, heart pounding. The top line read, Certificate of Birth. She scanned the page. Mother, Celeste Ellis. Father, Richard Langford. Child, Amara Celeste Ellis. No mention of Rose. No mention of silence. Only names. Real ones. And for the first time in her life, Amara felt the full weight of hers. She looked at the two people before her, the ones who had kept her secret tucked away like something shameful. But also something protected. The lawyer whispered, What will you do now? Amara stared at the portrait above the desk. Her father's frozen smile looked down at her like he was waiting for something. I'll give her one last toast, she said. Then she turned and walked toward the ballroom. The ballroom glowed even brighter than before, as if the chandeliers themselves were trying to distract from what was coming. Glasses clinked. Music swelled. The Langford name was in full bloom, on banners, on brochures, on the lips of every guest sipping vintage wine and offering practiced compliments. And through it all, Amara moved quietly. She was no longer dressed in her uniform. In the guest powder room, she had changed into a sleek black gown she'd packed for a moment she hadn't fully imagined until now. No jewelry. No designer label. Just clean lines and silent confidence. She didn't belong. Not by their rules. But tonight, she would break them. Across the ballroom, Evelyn Langford stood with a flute of champagne, basking in attention. She smiled at everyone and no one. Not a hair out of place. Every movement effortless. Amara kept her eyes on her. The old lawyer, Mr. Cranston, stood by the entrance. Miss Geneva was seated near the back, holding her cane with both hands, trembling slightly, though her face remained steady. Amara approached the central podium just as the host welcomed Evelyn to the stage for the final toast of the night. The room quieted. Evelyn stepped up to the microphone with ease. Thank you all, she began, voice warm and airy. It's been 10 years since my husband's passing. And yet, I feel him here with us tonight. Every year we gather, every time we honor the causes he championed, I feel his spirit guiding us. The crowd murmured in agreement. She continued, Richard believed in family. He believed in protecting our name, our legacy. Did he also believe in erasing his daughter? The voice was calm, direct. It cut through the air like glass. Gasps echoed. All eyes turned toward the figure stepping forward from the crowd. Amara. Evelyn's smile faltered, only for a breath, but it was enough. Enough for people to notice. I beg your pardon? Evelyn said, tilting her head, already gathering composure like a shield. Amara took her time. She walked toward the stage with quiet grace and ascended the steps, standing beside the woman who had tried to wipe her out of existence. I won't be long, Amara said, turning to the audience. I know I wasn't invited. In fact, I was working the floor earlier this evening. Maybe you remember me. Maybe you didn't even see me. A ripple passed through the room. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here for truth. And after 37 years, I think it's earned its moment. She reached into her clutch and pulled out the folded certificate, holding it in both hands like a delicate flame. This, she said, is my birth certificate. It lists Celeste Ellis as my mother, and Richard Langford as my father. Murmurs grew louder now. Faces turned. Glasses were lowered. Evelyn gave a soft laugh, controlled, disbelieving. You must be mistaken. That's impossible. Richard had no other children. That document must be forged. It's not forged, came Mr. Cranston's voice from the crowd. The lawyer stepped forward, holding a sealed envelope. And I can confirm that the will Richard Langford amended before his death included a letter for Amara Ellis, his daughter. I was there when he signed it. He handed the envelope to Amara. Evelyn stiffened. I had that letter destroyed. No, Geneva said suddenly from her chair. Her voice was cracked but clear. You just made sure it never reached her. But some of us still had the decency to save what you tried to bury. The air in the ballroom thinned. Amara broke the seal gently. Inside, folded with care, was her father's handwriting, old, neat, unmistakable. She read only one line aloud. "If you're reading this, it means you finally found your way home. I'm sorry for what I let happen to your name. You were always mine. Forgive me." Gasps turned to stunned silence. Amara's voice wavered, but only slightly. He wanted to protect his empire, but he lost his daughter in the process. "I don't want his empire. I never did." She turned to Evelyn. "I just wanted my name. And you stole it from me." Evelyn stood frozen, her mouth slightly open, face pale beneath the warm lights. A guest in the front row asked, "Is this true, Evelyn?" No answer. Someone else took a picture. The flash cracked like thunder. Amara stepped down from the stage. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply walked, with the quiet dignity of a woman who had nothing more to prove. A hand reached for hers as she passed, Geneva's. Another hand followed, Cranston's. And then, from somewhere in the crowd, a whisper. "She looks just like him." Outside, Amara stepped into the night air. The sky had cleared. The moon hung above the estate like a witness. She stood there for a moment, letter still in hand, breathing in the air of a name finally spoken. Then she walked toward the gate, not back to the servants' quarters, but forward, toward something entirely her own. 2 weeks had passed since the gala. By now, the media had devoured the scandal. Headlines poured in. Langford family secrets exposed at charity gala. Maid turned heiress, hidden daughter of billionaire steps forward. Evelyn Langford silent as illegitimate heiress emerges with proof. They tried to spin it. At first, Evelyn's people called it an opportunistic hoax. Then, when the lawyer confirmed everything, and Geneva gave a quiet, televised interview, they shifted to damage control. But Amara wasn't chasing cameras. She wasn't filing lawsuits. She wasn't demanding a mansion or a seat on the board of the Langford Foundation. She was busy. On the edge of the city, where the Langfords never visited, she had signed a lease to an old building that once held a sewing factory. Dusty windows, peeling paint, but solid bones. She stood in the center of it now, blueprints spread on a folding table. Across the room, a banner rested on a chair, freshly printed but not yet hung. It read, "The Celeste Center for Girls." Named for her mother. Not Richard. Not Langford. Just Celeste. A place for young women, especially girls like her, born in silence, pushed to the margins, brilliant and unclaimed. The center would offer mentorship, housing, tech labs, scholarships, healing. A future for those society forgot to include in its legacy. Rhea, one of the interns who had worked the gala, stepped into the space holding a box of donated laptops. "They are from Cranston," she said. "He said your father had always wanted to set something like this up." Amara nodded. "He probably did." She didn't say more. The truth was, she had cried, once. Alone, after reading the full letter. Her father had apologized, yes. But he had also admitted that fear made him small. That he let the weight of whiteness, empire, and inheritance pull him away from the only thing that had made him feel real. She had wept for the girl she was, for the silence she carried, and for the father she could have known if the world had been different. But then she dried her tears. And she got to work. The opening ceremony came on a crisp Saturday morning. Amara wore a navy blue suit and soft gold earrings. No brand logos. Just elegance. Guests included former teachers, community organizers, small donors, and girls from local schools. No press. No grand Langford names. Just people who understood what building from truth looked like. Geneva sat in the front row, holding a rose in her lap. Cranston stood quietly in the back. Evelyn Langford was not invited. Amara stood at the podium. The mural behind her showed a black woman holding a child's hand, walking through a door shaped like a broken chain. She didn't read from a speech. She just spoke. "I spent a long time wanting to be seen. But what I've learned is that being seen isn't enough. It's what you do after they see you that matters." The room was still. My father gave me blood. But my mother gave me backbone. This place is named after her. It's built from her strength, and from every girl who's ever been told to stay silent so someone else could feel comfortable. Applause rose, slow and full. Later that night, alone in the quiet building, Amara stood in the doorway and looked out at the empty street. A sleek black car pulled up. The door opened. Evelyn Langford stepped out. She wore a grey coat, no jewelry, no entourage. Just her and a small envelope. Amara didn't move. Evelyn walked forward, slowly, and stopped at the base of the steps. "I didn't come to fight," she said softly. "I know. I came to see it. Just once." Amara stepped aside. Evelyn walked into the front room, looked up at the mural, then handed Amara the envelope. "I told him to forget you," she said. "But he never did." "I know," Amara said. There was no warmth between them. But there was truth. And that, finally, was enough. Evelyn turned to leave. She paused at the door. "She looks like you," she said, nodding at the mural. "She is me." Evelyn left without another word. Amara stood there a moment longer, holding the envelope in her hand. She didn't open it. Not yet. Some truths didn't need to be read aloud anymore. She turned off the lights, locked the doors, and walked away from a history she no longer had to fight. Because now, she was building something new. Something hers. Legacy isn't just inherited, it's reclaimed. When truth is buried, silence becomes a seed. And one day, it rises. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire, challenge, and stay with you.